Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Marcus Philly, Functional Bodybuilding. Learning how to cook can be super overwhelming to people. It can really take the beginner and turn you off altogether from starting a diet plan. But there are so many benefits to cooking your own food, from health to performance, especially to aesthetics. So if you're trying to look good and move well, then you want to take on cooking as part of your weekly progression in your evolution in health and fitness. So I'm here to try and help you simplify it. I'm gonna show you how I cook a full day of my meals using nothing more than 5 ingredients per meal. I'll break it down with some simple tools in the kitchen. I'll show you how I navigate this, and hopefully these tips are gonna help you take the next step in your food journey. Let's do it. So I am gonna call today the anti-recipe approach to cooking. That's right, recipes can be a crutch for people to follow along, to learn some basics, but ultimately I find that recipes can be super confusing and also restrictive. Like, hey, if I don't follow the recipe, I'm not gonna get something that tastes good. What about just learning how to take simple ingredients and simple cooking principles so you can create whatever meal you want? So let's dive into some of my setup here, okay? Essentials for the kitchen. I use this station every single day, and it starts with a great cutting board and a great surface to do my preparation of produce. I'm gonna eat real food, real ingredients, and it's gonna require me to do some manipulation of it. So I wanna have a good cutting surface. The second thing I definitely think everyone needs to have is a great chef's knife. Invest some money in this. A sharp chef's knife that has a good weight and feels great in your hand is gonna make the cooking process so much more enjoyable. This one is a Shun knife that somebody gifted me, one of our followers. Thank you very much, whoever sent that to me. This is something that is not essential, but I have it here because after I've taught you how to navigate cooking food very simply, you may want to take the next step, which is weighing and measuring your food. So I'll show you how I use this in my meal preparation, but it's definitely not the first step that you want to have. So a decent kitchen scale could be a good thing to have, a good resource to have. Additionally, the 3 cooking vessels or heating vessels I'm going to use today are a rice cooker, something that can cook rice in about 15 to 20 or 30 minutes for you is a great step for you to start. It also cooks things like quinoa and other starches. This is an air fryer, and an air fryer is essentially a small condensed oven. It can get really hot, really fast. It can cook 2 to 3 meals worth of vegetables in this. It can fry bacon, and it can roast and bake and do a whole bunch of other things. I use it all the time for cooking vegetables, and that's what I'm gonna show you today on how I use this to prepare batches of vegetables every day that are gonna fill me up and taste delicious. And then lastly, we've got the stovetop here, and all I have is a cast iron pan. This cast iron pan is super heavy, it's relatively cheap, and a heavy bottom cast iron pan, when I heat this thing up to max heat, it's gonna retain a lot of that heat inside the pan so that whatever I cook in there gets cooked very evenly and relatively quickly. So I'm gonna go ahead and just let that start to heat up because I'm gonna do some preparation on it soon. Okay, 5 ingredient meals is the focus of today. Why 5 ingredient meals? Well, I'm all about simplicity. If you're overwhelmed in the kitchen, it's really difficult to get started. But I wanna show you that with 5 ingredients, you can make well-balanced meals. It's about finding foods, high quality foods, that when they're prepared very simply with the right seasoning, the right application, they taste amazing. Many of us have palates that have been trained to crave sweet, crave salty, crave processed things. And it might take some discipline to train that out of you, but your palate, your taste buds, you can retrain them to love simple whole foods. So that's what we're gonna get started with today, and I'm gonna show you again how 5 ingredients can actually complete an entire dish in front of you. You can change the quantities based upon your goals, your needs, what you like, but the foods themselves, they're just going to be very basic. And to take basic food and elevate the flavor in them, you don't need a lot of sauces or other additional ingredients. You need some simple foundations. So on top of the 5 ingredients that go into each meal, I will always have things like black pepper, sea salt, pink salt, a vinegar and acid like balsamic vinegar, maybe a chili powder or like paprika, smoked paprika or regular paprika. And then this is another favorite of mine. This is called tamari, which is a gluten-free soy sauce. It doesn't have wheat in it, and it has a bit of that salty flavor that we love from soy sauce. So those are additional flavoring agents that are going to go into my meals. I don't count these towards my 5 ingredients because they don't contribute a significant number of calories or any calories at all, and they don't complicate the digestion process or the flavor palate, training process either. So having something like this on hand in your kitchen, right in like a area that's close to your cooking station, is key. So I'll have these off to the side and I'll use them sparingly as we go. Now, I do tend to eat 3 big meals a day without snacks in between. You might find yourself wanting to snack in between meals, and that's okay. But building a great foundation of 3 solid meals is such a simple and perfect way for many of you to start, and it's what I do myself. I try and make those meals big enough to last me until the next one so that I don't have a snack in between and I can let my digestive system rest in between meals. Now, let me show you one meal, okay? I've got meal number 1, meal number 2, and meal number 3 all laid out in front of me. These are the raw ingredients, and I've already pre-weighed out all the different things that I'm going to be cooking with. So let's look at number 1. These are the 5 ingredients, and I'll pull them up here onto the cutting board. First off, we've got, let me start with the protein. Okay, this is ground bison. It is 10 ounces of cooked bison. So I weighed that amount of bison before cooking. I took 10 ounces of raw meat and I cooked it, and it turned into this. I'll get the question from you. I'm sure somebody will ask, why do you count your ingredients, measure them in their raw form? So here's a quick lesson on that. 10 ounces of bison when I started cooking it in the pan. After about 10 minutes, water evaporates out. It's now 8 ounces because all that water has evaporated out after 10 minutes. It's still the same number of calories, the same number of grams of protein as when it started in the pan at 10 ounces, only now it's 8 ounces. So if I take that out, I've got 8 ounces of cooked meat, has the essential ingredients and all of the macronutrients and calories of the 10 ounces that were raw. So if you weigh and measure your cooked meat, there's a lot of variability depending on how much water has evaporated. Ingredient labels will typically show the nutrition facts for when that ingredient is raw. So all of these ingredients were measured in their raw form before cooking them, and that gives me the most accurate measure of what I'm putting into my body for those of you who are going to be tracking calories and macronutrients. So again, I'm starting this meal with a protein source, bison. Next, I'm going to move on to my vegetable. I'm making Brussels sprouts, about 300 grams. Additionally, I'm going to think about adding in a starch because this is going to be my post-workout meal, and I'm going to have some rice. I like Calrose rice. This is white. This is kind of like sushi style rice. Tastes great to me. I already have it cooking over here in the rice cooker right now. Then I'm thinking about a fat source. I've got avocado, fresh avocado. I'm going to cut this out in a couple minutes and show you what that looks like. And then lastly, I'm going to put a little fruit on the plate because I love raspberries. These are fresh raspberries, about 2 cups of that. So that's 5 ingredients, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'll probably put some salt, black pepper on to, I did put salt and black pepper onto the meat. I'll put some salt and black pepper on here as well. Okay, this is actually the second meal I'm showing you, but this is actually going to be my breakfast tomorrow. And another important tip that I get, I like to give people, and a question I get is, Marcus, how do you eat food that isn't traditional breakfast food for breakfast? Well, I like this joke. It's like my stomach doesn't know what time it is. All my body wants is the right ingredients to fuel it, to feel good, to have good mental clarity, great energy. And I have found over the years that if I get away from the typical breakfast foods, which are refined carbohydrates, I feel best. So having some protein, vegetables, fruit, and fat works great for me. Here's an option that I will typically go with, and that is a piece of protein. And in this case, I'm going to be cooking a 10-ounce ribeye, so steak for breakfast. I'm going to roast all of this broccoli. I know that seems like a lot. It will cook down once it's roasted. Remember, the water is going to evaporate out, so I weighed that prior to cooking it. I've got avocado oil. I love avocado oil. It's something I keep around the kitchen. It's great for cooking at high heat. It's got a great nutrition profile to it as well. I've got blueberries, about 1.5 cups of blueberries. And then this, what do you think? What is that? This is my heavy cream or heavy whipping cream that I'm going to put in my coffee as my first meal of the day. So that's meal number 2, and I'll get to prepping that out relatively shortly. Okay, the final meal of the day, my 5-ingredient meal, is going to start again. We'll start with the protein source. I've got organic chicken thighs here. Now, the organic chicken thighs were prepared a couple days ago, and what I did with them was simply marinate them in something that I have, it's my go-to marinade, okay? It's got some of these ingredients like tamari, balsamic, and paprika in there. Those 3, let them sit in that for about 30 minutes, and then put them in the pan, just like I'm gonna do with the steak in just a minute. Creates a great flavor, and they will last for 3 to 5 days. And once you've reheated them on whatever heating vessel you like, it tastes almost exactly the same. Now, I'm not gonna reheat these. I'm gonna eat them on a salad when I have this meal tomorrow, and it's best cold in that situation. So I've got protein. Then I've got this box of organic baby arugula. It's gonna be the bed of my salad that I'm gonna put in this big bowl here. I've also got this yellow squash, which I'm gonna chop up and I'm gonna put in the air fryer. So I'm gonna have some cooked veg on top of my salad. And then these are cooked beets. All right, they come in these little individual packages. I'm gonna slice those up. Those are gonna go onto the top of the salad. And then, because I've got this balsamic, I'm gonna use olive oil, balsamic, and one more ingredient that's also calorically neutral. I'm not gonna use very much of it. I don't count it as an ingredient. It's basically just mustard seed and vinegar. That's what makes mustard. I'm gonna put a little mustard. These 3 together with salt and pepper is gonna make a great salad dressing to go on top of this that I'll dress it with at the moment that I eat it. So that's gonna make my last meal of the day, another 5-ingredient meal. And combine all of these with the right portions is gonna fuel me up for the day. This is all gonna equate to about 3,500 or 3,600 calories from 3 meals. That's right. Each meal is roughly 1,000 to 1,400 calories each, and that is what I need to sustain myself. You could eat a lot less. You might need to eat more. And all it would require is maybe tweaking the amount of one ingredient in each meal. I put in 100 grams of rice, maybe you need 400 grams of rice. I put in 100 grams of rice, maybe you only need 50 grams of rice. And it's essentially the same thing with any of the ingredients you see on here. You could increase the amount, decrease the amount, but the foundation keeps it simple and flavorful. All right, I want to get started with some of the things that are going to take a little bit longer, like the vegetables. The air fryer helps speed up cooking, but it's still going to take about 20 to 25 minutes to roast the vegetables that I want. Now, typically, I would want to be as efficient as I can be in the kitchen. So I know that meal number 1 has broccoli, meal number 2 has Brussels sprouts, meal number 3 has the yellow squash. I'm going to chop them all up and I'm going to put them in the air fryer together. They're going to cook in the same heat, in the same amount of time, and then when I take them out, I can portion them out into individual meals. So I'm going to get into that right now. Let's do it. Okay, I'm gonna load this up now with a little bit of the oil. So one of the ingredients for the first meal of the day was avocado oil. I'm gonna put 20 grams on my vegetables. And easiest way for me to do that is I put the oil on the scale, I zero it out, I spray it on, reweigh it, 20 grams of avocado oil are on there. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of salt, a little bit of ground pepper, shake it up, and then in to the fryer. Select the air fryer option, which is just the hottest option. It's going to circulate some air, which actually helps to heat it up faster and get some of that moisture out. I'm going to go all the way up to 25 minutes, and there it goes. I don't have to think about it. And now I'm going to go on to the meat prep for the ribeye that I have not cooked. Now, I want to do this just to show you how I prepare this steak, but typically a nice ribeye like this I wouldn't want to cook until I'm actually going to eat it, because it's not great to prepare this ahead of time. But for your viewing pleasure, I'm going to show you how I prepare a steak like this. This is about a ½ an inch to maybe an inch thick, so this is going to cook super fast, and all I'm going to want to do is get a really nice sear on each side. I'm going to salt and pepper the heck out of this thing to get a lot of good flavor. I've got that thing screaming hot, and I might spray a touch of avocado oil on there just so we don't get any stickage. So now that I've got all this seasoning on the side, I will just roll the edges of this to make sure that every last bit of this steak is covered. So now this is super hot, and I'm just gonna do a quick little spray to get a little bit of oil on it. That's avocado oil as well, matching the ingredient that I already have in this meal. And I'm guessing maybe at most 2 minutes per side, and that's gonna leave me with a kind of a medium rare. So I'm gonna go a minute, flip it, a minute, a minute, a minute, keep flipping it. While I wait a minute, I'll All right, while that is still going, I've got another couple minutes over there. I'm gonna go and prep out this salad. So I love these pre-washed lettuce boxes because it makes it, again, super simple to just pull real ingredients out and get a meal really fast so that you don't have to wait around and make poor decisions because you're so hungry. These beets get pretty messy, so make sure you drain all that water over the sink and then get rid of that. I'm doing a minute on each side times 2, and that's going to get me that really nice sear without overcooking one side of it. Now, beets are not for everybody, and you don't have to love them, and I'm not saying you need to eat them. I really enjoy them, and they're really sweet this time of year. But if you're not into beets, so you could grab something like carrots or tomatoes and use that as your additional vegetable that you're going to put on top of your salad. And then what I'll also show you is that I will come back in here and I will cut this chicken into smaller, manageable pieces that will also just get sprinkled around on top. Okay, I'm going to kill the heat on this. I'm going to give this a place for it to rest. That steak is done. It looks like it got a great crust on it. I'm pretty sure it's cooked to perfection on the inside, and I'm not going to touch it. The best time to eat that steak would be in about 10 minutes from now, and that's not when I'm going to end up eating it, but I wanted to show you how to prep that out. And after about 10 minutes, I might slice that thing into small strips, which then I would have with my broccoli and my blueberries and my cup of coffee for breakfast. Okay, back to the salad. I want to show you something that I talked about, making a dressing, and this is what I have in this jar right here. I always, typically will have a dressing that's already made sitting right here. And again, it's very simple. It is, that's the rice cooker telling us that it's done. It sings a little nice tune that my kids love, and they hear it from across the house, so they know the rice is ready. So again, this had 2 parts olive oil to 1 part vinegar. I chose balsamic. It has salt and pepper in it, and a dash of mustard. It could be yellow mustard, it could be Dijon mustard. The mustard adds a little bit of flavor, but what it also does is it helps to emulsify the salad dressing. So that is what you're after, and that would be what my dressing will look like when I put it on top of the salad. I don't dress until we're actually ready to eat. One more thing that I have around, we have different types of salt in the kitchen. I've got pink salt, I've got something called kosher salt, and then I've got finishing salt or Malden salt. And you can see that they're all different levels of coarseness. This is really fine. The pink is just some minerals that are in there. This is a little bit more coarse. It's great for pinching and for seasoning things like steaks and for meats. And that this finishing salt is what you put on at the last moment. It's these big crystals, really big crystals, and I put it right on and it adds a little texture. It's a great flavor enhancer. You could pour this onto some meat when it's done, onto your vegetables. When I have watermelon, I put a little finishing salt on watermelon. It brings out different flavors. Let's go check on the vegetables. So they're starting to get some color. Still a lot of moisture needs to come out of these, so I'll just mix it up and then I'll pop it right back in. It starts up on its own. I need to scoop out my rice, and you heard the rice cooker go off. Tells me that that's done. This thing is really hot right now, so have it. This is the other kitchen utensil I didn't talk about having, or kitchen tool, is having rags that are around. We've got about 30 of these, and we cycle through about 3 or 4 a day. We're constantly turning them over, but it's great for wiping down surfaces, keeping your kitchen clean, and for grabbing hot things. Now, to me, there's nothing better than ground meat and rice mixed together into one bowl. Put a little bit of tamari on there, and it is just a dream come true. This is a great post-workout meal for me because the white rice adds a bit more starch to the meal, and I get more carbohydrates to fuel and recover from whatever I did in training. But we need to get this avocado sliced up. Again, that's not something I would love to do right until I'm about to eat it, because the second you take an avocado out of its skin, it's going to start to oxidize and go brown on you. So this is something you want to do right at the moment you're going to eat. But to show you how I would prepare this, again, I just want to do things as simple as possible. Open this up, take out the seed, the pit. My kids love to say, "Does it have a pit? Does it have a pit?" Every time we eat something that looks like it might have a pit in it. And then from here, I'm going to do this just to see roughly how much I got out of it, but I will just scoop the whole thing out and I'll place it into the meal. And I don't have to worry too much about dicing it up. Like some people like to chop it up and cut it inside the skin. I've seen people cut themselves pretty easily doing that. So this is simple, and you can always slice it up once it's in the bowl. And so that was my weighing technique too. I put the avocado there, I scooped it out, left the skin on, 177 grams of avocado. For any of you who are into counting and weighing and measuring, these are little ways that I use this scale in the process of prepping my ingredients. The other thing that I have been doing throughout this whole process to prepare for this conversation is I've been using MyFitnessPal, or this is my food tracker, and I'm putting in the meals as I go. So everything I've discussed with you today, they're all lined up and mapped out for each of these meals. And remember, I'll show you those exact ingredients, those exact measurements, how they meet my daily requirements for food and what keeps me fueled in the description. All right, the air fryer is all finished. It was about 22 minutes. I opened it up to shake it. It looks pretty much done to me. And because I'm prepping this ahead of time, there'll be a reheating process tomorrow, which might include just tossing it in the air fryer for 2-3 minutes, or the microwave, or maybe the stovetop. But either way, I think it's totally done for now. I would eat that right this moment if it was mealtime. And in the spirit of 5-ingredient meals, I'm actually going to go through here and I'm going to pick out the various different vegetables and assort them into the meals that I had pre-planned so that you can see what that looks like. All right, a couple interesting things to note. Do you guys remember when I put this broccoli in here? The raw broccoli was filling up this entire bowl, like overflowing, and then I cooked it, and now it's almost down in half size. What happened to all the broccoli? Well, it's just moisture. It's water that's in that vegetable that evaporated out. I haven't lost any nutrients. If there's any juice down there with minerals, it's just at the bottom. I could literally just kind of tip it to the side and I could get all that juice out onto my broccoli, but here you go. Another reason why, if you are counting your macronutrients, weighing and measuring your ingredients raw is always a good idea. This thing cut in half. It weighs a lot less than it did when it started. And I could do that experiment for you now, but I already know it's about 50% cut in half in terms of weight and volume. Again, I would not do this unless it was time to eat normally, but I'm showing you what we got out of a thin cut steak, cooked relatively quickly. That, if you guys know steak and if you know cooking, is a really nice medium rare. It's got a good sear on it, and this is gonna go right on top of my broccoli, which I'm gonna have with my blueberries and my cup of coffee with cream. Now over here, I took out all the Brussels sprouts. Remember, I have my Bison that I cooked ahead of time. I cooked a few days worth of Bison, so I had that in the fridge, pulled it right out. Air fryer on these Brussels. The rice cooker did the work for me, and then I scooped out an avocado. That is a legit meal ready to go. Got lots of flavor, and again, I've got my salt, I've got my pepper, I've got my tamari that I can put on there. All very, very calorie neutral, additional flavoring ingredients. You don't have to reach for a sauce with 10 things in it. Keep it simple. Those are gonna go with the raspberries. And then over here, you saw me just making this dressing. It's gonna go on top of this bed of lettuce, arugula with beets, sliced up organic chicken. And then this yellow squash that was cooked, I'm gonna let that cool all the way down to room temperature before I put it on top of here, because there's nothing worse than hot vegetables on a cold dish. It's gonna get things wilted and not the best texture. So I'll let that cool down for a while, and then right before eating it, I will dress it up with all of this, because that's all 50 grams or milliliters of the olive oil that I wanted to have in my dressing. I want to get all that nourishment in there. Counting my oils is important because those are essential fats that I want for my diet. So that's meal number 3. And that is what cooking a day's worth of food can look like. I did that relatively quickly with the help of these different tools. I had some stuff prepared beforehand, but I was also talking to you quite a while, so I think I could get this done usually in about 20 to 25 minutes each morning, and that gets me set up for an entire day. It's not that much time if you dedicate to it consistently relative to what you would spend on figuring out what to eat, figuring out where to go to get the food, figuring out how long it's going to take to drive to that place and from. You save a ton of time overall in terms of your entire investment into what you're eating each day. And this way, I know what goes into every meal. I know it's going to get me towards my goals for my body. So this is my approach. And I'd like to talk now about how you can get started. Even if this seems like a lot to take on in your first go, you don't need to start there. So cooking is like any skill or any fitness trait that you're trying to develop in the gym. It takes time. You didn't start with a 300-pound back squat or a 200-pound back squat. You started with an air squat. And you did it once a week because your legs were so sore for the next 4 days, you couldn't do another one. Well, that's what it takes with learning in the kitchen. And to prep out these 5-ingredient meals, a full day of eating, measured on the scale to nail my macronutrients that I need for the day, that's like a 300-pound back squat. It took me a long time to get there. So what I encourage you to do is get comfortable with one of these cooking vessels. Yeah, get the basics. Get the cutting board. Get the knife. Buy some of the staple ingredients for flavoring. But maybe it's one meal a week that you're going to start cooking for yourself to get started. One 5-ingredient meal. Maybe it's the salad, the 5-ingredient salad. Maybe it's the 5-ingredient breakfast or lunch, post-workout meal. You choose. That then becomes two meals a week. That then becomes one meal a day. And then ultimately it becomes 2 meals a day, and then 3 meals a day. And then we can start talking about preparing in bulk ahead of time. Maybe you don't want to do this every single morning. Maybe, like me, you want to have 2 to 3 meals worth of meat already cooked in the fridge. An easy to grab protein source that you don't have to think about, that when you get hungry, you can nourish yourself with some protein. So that could be bison in the fridge. That could be grilled chicken in the fridge. It could even be some steaks, although I don't recommend that. Cook those to order if you can. Another thing you could do ahead of time in bulk is maybe you, instead of just making 100 grams of rice in the rice cooker, you make a full 4 cups of rice in the rice cooker. That holds up really well in the fridge, and you can have that ready to add to your meal as an ingredient any time of day. Things like avocados, having them close by, having fresh fruit always available in your house that's visible or easy to grab in the refrigerator, and having vegetables that maybe are even pre-cut. I cut them up right now, but what I'll often do is I'll spend a Sunday cutting all my vegetables for about 20 minutes into the right sizes so I can just scoop them out of a bag, toss them in the air fryer right in the morning to get started. This is how you can progress from zero to cooking like a culinary master in the kitchen and making delicious food that gets you to the goals that you want. So to recap how I created these meals, the 5-ingredient approach starts with a protein source. That's where you want to start in your meal. Whether that's animal-based or plant-based, think about what's going to provide you a dense amount of amino acids. It's going to level out your energy, help your muscles start to build, help you recover, and just stay alert all day. Second ingredient is going to be some vegetable, fresh produce. Think Brussels sprouts, broccoli, carrots, something that's just 1 ingredient long. That's going to be number 2. Number 3 is the starch component. Maybe you don't need a starch, and so you can just add a second vegetable. Maybe you want a starch. Maybe it's quinoa, rice, potato, something like that. Number 4, think about a fat source. Now, fat is something that you may or may not need. I had it in each of my meals, but if you are eating a fattier cut of meat, you might not need that. So for the ribeye steak, it's got plenty of fat in it. And remember, fat is an essential ingredient to help your cells rebuild, to help your hormones stay optimal. And because lots of the nutrients in your produce, your vegetables, are fat soluble, you need a little bit of fat in your meal in order to absorb them. So don't forget that. The final ingredient for me is a fruit. Maybe I put some raspberries, maybe it's an apple, maybe it's blueberries. Maybe I don't need that extra bit of fruit and I just throw in another vegetable or leave off the 5th ingredient. You don't have to have 5 ingredients to make this meal simple, delicious, and nutritious. You keep it simple. It's going to help guide you to the foods that make you feel the best early on so that you can win in the long term. Now, moving forward from this, hey Marcus, when should I start actually calculating all my numbers and my macronutrients? When is it appropriate? Well, I think it's not appropriate to start with. I think you need to just learn how to build meals like this and to start to feel what it's like to eat real food. If you start to feel what it's like to eat real food, you move from 1 meal a week to 1 meal a day to 2 meals a day to cooking 90+% of your meals on your own. You may likely get all of the results that you want in your body composition, your health, and your performance without ever having to track a single number. That is powerful. Now, if you've gotten to that point and you're in the 80%, I cook 80% of my meal range and I'm doing great with this cooking myself, and you still want to elevate your goals, your body composition, your performance, now's the time to start thinking about counting what you're putting into your body and establishing what the right ratios or the right calorie amounts and the right grams of protein are for you. So until you get to that point, don't stress about it. Just focus on getting quality food together. And then when you do want to start to count and measure, we have resources for you available through functionalbodybuilding.com. I'll leave you with a couple final thoughts on my approach to eating. And before I get to that, I want to invite you into the comments below to go and ask me questions about my approach and what I've done with my coaching over the years with people and their nutrition. Eating is something that requires just as much skill building as training does, if not more. This is something you do multiple times a day as opposed to training, which is typically once a day or even less frequently than that for people. So, major point, I prepare almost all of my own food. Yeah, I like to go out and eat at restaurants and indulge with my friends, get somebody else to prepare a meal for me. But for the majority of the time, I'm cooking everything. That gives me so much control, power, and insight into what's going into my body. And it also helps to inform my decisions when I go out to eat. I know what it's like to cook a meal, what it looks like on a plate. I go out and get something at a restaurant. I can start to make better decisions there too. When it comes to knowing how much my body needs, I like to pre-plan some of these things. So I've planned out a full day of eating for tomorrow. I know roughly how many calories this is, about 3,600 calories, which is what's fueling my body these days. And I know that because I don't take a day-by-day approach. I'm a little bit more hungry today, I'm going to eat a little bit less today. I look at my average caloric consumption and I track my body weight. And after a month, I see, okay, eating 3,600 calories, I haven't gained weight and I haven't lost weight. And I only had 2 days where I indulged. So that's working for me. If after the course of a month, I saw myself dropping body weight or increasing my body weight and I didn't want that to happen, I could then go back to my generalities around how much to eat and make some adjustments. Frequently, I get questions from you all asking, hey, I did an extra workout today. Should I have extra carbs? Or hey, I'm not that hungry today. Should I not eat this extra food? My idea around this is you should always try and stay as consistent as possible. You're not feeling very hungry one day, you skip out on a bunch of calories. The next day, you're ravenous and you can't control your appetite and you overindulge. Similarly, you do an extra workout and you're feeling like, oh, I went on an extra hike today. I should eat a lot more food. And you overindulge relative to the 200 calories of extra energy that you expended on your hike. It's better to look at this in long-term patterns of averages rather than day by day, in my opinion. And now you have seen me do some weighing and measuring, and I'm putting all the ingredients amounts in the description below. Weighing and measuring is something that has worked for me for a period of time, but when I get lost and I get off track, it's usually not because I haven't been weighing and measuring my food properly. It's because I've moved away from these core principles of making real, simple, delicious meals that are good for my body. So when I see myself slipping and getting poor appetite control, finding myself overeating, finding myself undernourishing, it usually comes back to I've been eating out more, I've been having a few extra alcoholic drinks in a month, I haven't been taking the time to prepare my meals ahead of time, so when my body's getting hungry, I'm reaching for things that are easy to grab, and they're usually not the best. So when I get into trouble, I don't go back to the calculator, I go back to the simple stuff. I go back to cooking meals like this and listening to my body and the feedback it gives me based upon what I'm putting in to these meals and I'm getting from real food. So always start there. And from there, you can start to calculate what you need when you want to elevate your goals. Hey, my knee hurts. Go back to the fundamentals of knee stability. Once the knee stops hurting, then you can start working on your back squat percentages, right? It's the same concept. If your knee is hurting, don't dive into the back squat percentages and figure out what the right build is. Go back to the fundamentals, just like with food. So that's my final tip for you all. I hope you got something out of today. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. It helps the channel grow, and we want to hear your comments below so that we can make more content that helps you on your health fitness journey. See you next time.